Testing 1, 2, 3. We have our acronyms, just not those. That was one of my fears. But the good thing,
And that's part of it.
we also figure out, we experts against experts. Right. The IT governance is equal state, this stuff is it's good. We'll have the IT people there. Good see. That was good. Not bad. It's always a. See ya. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's there.
Where are you on,
I just walked over, which is.
Oh, what do you know? Oh. Thank you.
Up to you. So I got this loaded up right here with your presentation, so just come up here, sit down, work the slides and kind of go. The camera's always gonna be on them and you can share screens. Here, mic here, let's capture it on loudspeakers plus one, right? You have one more item for you, so you'll be. And then the whole bit. That against the back wall. Agendas are back there, yeah. One copy up there. Here, I got one right here though. You need it more? Copies, I have one copy back there.
starting off bad.
Test, test. One more time. Echo, echo.
Yeah, yep. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started now. We have quorum while we wait for Matt Stamper, who is on his way but stuck in traffic. So first, the call to order. I'm going to take attendance. Ike?
Present.
Yaw?
Present.
Maggie had a personal matter that emergency so she cannot be here today. Lee?
Present.
Matt, as I mentioned, is on his way. We'll catch him when he gets here. And Ted?
Present.
Okay, next, we're gonna, agenda item is approval of the July 31st, 2025 minutes. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
any comment?
Public comment.
Public comment?
In chambers, and so allegedly Audra, if you want to come up and make comment.
Thank you, Coda, and I will get that right by our 47th meeting, I promise.
You knew I was here. Come on. I mean, I think for the minutes, there's other meetings where there's a little bit more information, like on who's actually attended the meeting and who's spoken and maybe kind of what they've said, so that people can have transparency as far as like who's coming in and what people are saying. So I feel like you could add a little bit more information. to that so that people can read it and get kind of an accounting of what's taken place so that they understand that there are people that are coming. It's not that, I mean, granted, I'm sure there are meetings where nobody shows up, but I think that it's important to show public input when you do have people come in so that, it just shows, accountability for things. So thank you.
Great, thank you. It's a good point.
Don't a number of the minutes have pretty detailed information as to who spoke and who was, well, first of all the minutes have who was there, if I'm not mistaken, but most of them have a detailed account of what went down, even public comment. But some are a lot more elaborate than others.
Yeah, and I think we can probably do more, and I think it is also important to show that there are now regularly people from the community showing up. So if we could figure out a way to express that in the minutes in some manner, I think that makes sense.
They can always go to the tape, but I'll put more in the minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Any other public comment?
Not seeing any hands raised virtually, so I think you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. And then any comment from board members?
No.
No, seeing none. All those in favor of approval of the July 31st, 2025 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none? Passed. Thank you. Okay, now non-agenda public comment. Do we have any non-agenda public comment?
Yes, we do. We have two speakers here in person. So if allegedly Audra, if you could come on back up.
2 minutes.
Yeah, let's go to 2 minutes. And to your point, if anyone who feels comfortable stating their name publicly, please do so. And then we can.
Allegedly Audra, my person uses the name Audra. I would like to say that I am streaming this. I think it's important for people to see public meetings, and the streaming that you guys have is not comparable to what I have. I'm using my phone and I can get the entire view here, and I feel like you guys could do better with that because it's kind of, I mean, half the time, like I've told you guys, because I usually call in, like sometimes you can't hear you guys or there's different problems, but it's very easy. I'm just using a program that goes out to different streaming platforms. But it's very easy, and I'm willing to like help you guys if you would like it, because I think it's important for people to see what's going on in their community. But as far as all of their surveillance goes, my concern is that like in New Orleans, they're using Palantir and AI. And they've been doing this for nearly a decade or so. And the concern is that this is kind of stuff is going to be moving into our communities. And I look at like China or Israel for, reference as far as like what this looks like in our future. And with the things that are going on in China, I mean, they use a social credit score for people. And so if they want to go in and get just basic services like get gas or go to the doctor or go to the grocery store, if they're not in compliance like with the government, they will punish them by saying like, you can't use these services because your credit score isn't good enough. And so it's a concern with seeing all of these implementations of things coming in that there is, more control and stuff like that being implemented. And it is for, under the guise of public safety, but in reality, it's more about controlling the movements of people. And like ALPR is used in other countries for keeping people out of low emission zones or saying that they need a permit to go in and enter this area, and you can only get so many per year. So I think as we engage in these technologies, we really need to think about the consequences that come and what this means for the people. When sometimes, I mean, I don't feel like the police department is as transparent as they should be. A lot of times they are kind of gatekeepers of information, and they are, kind of holding it from the public. And I just feel like that's negligent, and that people should have complete transparency. Like we should be able to, record any kind of meeting and have things be out in the open. Anytime you want to hide stuff, that's a concern, because it's like, if you're not doing anything nefarious, you shouldn't have a problem with it being out in the open. And I think when we're using ALPR and we want to mask things like schools, that lets me know that this isn't about public safety, because you could be putting children at risk.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker we have is Seth Hall.
Hi, board. Great to see you all today. Thank you for your volunteerism. Oddly enough, similar topic to what Audra just had, and I really appreciate her bringing the video. San Diego Privacy, Seth Hall with San Diego Privacy today, for this comment anyway. We've undertaken a project to operationalize a little bit of what's going on at the board with regards to when people come to this microphone and they make certain commitments. That is not being captured, okay? There is no regular structure here happening to capture those commitments, to capture those claims, and then to hold people accountable to those claims. And we've undertaken that in alliance with a local college who's offered to help out with some staffing of that using student work. What we have found as we have gone backwards at the board is that the audio and video recordings of this board, when compared to every other board that is being posted at the city of San Diego, is inaudible. It is indecipherable. The quality is so astonishingly low that you may have not made the recording in the first place. What that means is that this board's work is being lost. Your time here that you are volunteering, the hard work that each of you are putting in to this board is being lost. Nobody is recording it. Nobody is citing it. We cannot go back to it. That must come to an end. Everywhere from the mobility board to the arts advisory board has totally normal recordings, right? It's not perfect, but it's fine, right? And we can go back and we can see. I know this board has very big ambitions for permanent staff and things like that, but I would ask the board to focus a little bit on the fundamentals before we get too ahead of yourselves.
Thank you. Very much appreciated. But both sets of comments, I couldn't agree with both sets of comments more. We could have a long discussion about what credit scores are used for in the consumer realm, insurance industry, not in California, fortunately, but all over the place. And I will look into the recording issues. I know that has been an issue for quite some time. And if it's substandard compared to other boards, that strikes me as a problem that should be fixed. I also very much appreciate any help from the community, from local universities, to help us do a better job of getting out to the public. As you noted, we have no resources whatsoever. It is entirely voluntary, and you know, unfortunately, that's not going to change anytime soon. And of course, you know, it is absolutely critical to what we do to make sure that people see and understand what we do. Ike?
We have members here that have served on other boards that may be able to give some insight as to how they are able to provide regular recordings. I mean, I don't think they're staffed or have the resources.
The key is that those meetings are held during normal business hours. City TV and communications departments, this would be overtime for them essentially. And so without budgets to pay for them, it's difficult to get them here. And so to see similar recordings to council meetings or committee meetings would need to be moved during the daytime.
Is this an anomaly? What percent of boards are held outside of
About
business hours?
50-50 split.
And all of them?
But this is the same technology that all boards use. We can look at maybe other meeting locations, either the committee room or another city facility. I think the idea of doing this during business hours has been floated in the past, and it's just not workable for an all-volunteer board. But we can definitely commit to trying to find a better recording device for these meetings. Because I agree, I've been running into the same tech issues that the communities listed here. But that's really the key difference is normal business hours versus not.
Hold on. So if that's the key, right, then boards that meet outside shouldn't be able to have good recordings on a regular basis. And if they are, and if they have the same technology, well, there should be something else. I just want to just kind of hone in on that because this has come up almost every few meetings for years now.
Certainly one answer is if other boards are doing it better, you know, that may be the solution to us. But I think what we need to do is figure out what the solution is for us, regardless of what other boards are doing. And it's certainly achievable. I certainly appreciate the public coming in and it's kind of embarrassing that the city can't do it itself, but there may also be reasons why the city needs to record it in addition to other recordings for Brown Act reasons or something like that. I don't know.
I
But
don't
if-
think
but-
that would be an issue at all, so.
But if the public can record it and the city can post those recordings on the city's website, you know, that may be a solution. But I'll personally look into that and see if we can't figure something out. Let's talk after the meeting and then we can try to figure out what the solution is. But I appreciate that. Any other non-agenda public comment?
No other speakers in person and none online.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now going to move to discussion, item number 4, which is a discussion, which is going to be a presentation by the San Diego Police Department on the ALPR revised surveillance report and use policy. I just want to remind the board members, this is a non-action item. This is, and for all of you listening, what we are doing here is we've been working with the police department. There's a committee that has been specifically focusing on ALPRs, and we are getting revisions to the use policy and the surveillance report, and it's been a back and forth effort in trying to improve those reports and meet the board's demands. So they're here to give sort of an interim update on those efforts. So floor is yours.
Thank you for having us. So Lieutenant McAndrew, and with me is Captain Laura of San Diego Police Department. I'm here to present the revised automated license plate reader report and provide an update on the progress we've been making with the assistance of the Privacy Advisory Board. What are smart streetlights? Quick overview. Smart streetlights combine 2 separate technologies, a situational awareness camera and an automated license plate recognition camera. This technology is attached to streetlights and makes observations in public places where there is no expectation of privacy and there are no Fourth Amendment implications. The situational awareness cameras are downward-facing video cameras. They record video on a 13-day loop, and anything recorded after 13 days is overwritten and permanently destroyed. The ALPR camera is a separate camera that captures images of cars passing by. The license plates are compared to stolen vehicle databases, wanted vehicle databases, and missing person databases. ALPR images are only accessed when related to an investigation. The data is retained on a secure server by the vendor for 30 days prior to its automatically being overwritten. It is important to remember that ALPR images show a snapshot of a vehicle and license plate on a public road. They do not contain personal identifying information such as name, date of birth, or home address. ALPR images do not identify the occupants of the vehicle or who is driving the vehicle. These images of vehicles simply provide strong investigative leads, pointing investigators in the right direction. For example, if a victim of a robbery states the vehicle was a red sedan with a large yellow bumper sticker and cracked rear windshield, investigators can search the database to locate vehicles in the area matching the description. Additional work in databases must be used to identify who the vehicle belongs to, who was driving the vehicle at the time, and ultimately locate the correct suspect. Keeping with this example, if the suspect vehicle was located, investigators would only extract images or videos as evidence associated with that specific investigation. That evidence is impounded and retained per department policy, and all other data is overwritten. Quick overview, in the last 20 months, the system has assisted in over 550 cases, helping recover approximately $5.5 million in stolen property, including over 410 stolen vehicles, assisting in recovering 20 firearms off the street, and helped in locating 3 missing people, marking a clear return on investment in both financial terms and in public safety for San Diegans. What is the effect beyond the numbers? People who have their stolen vehicles recovered can go back to work, take their kids to school, make their medical appointments, and get their lives back on track. In a time of concern over disparity in stops, this technology allows us to be laser focused on the right vehicle and suspect. We follow objective evidence. By allowing officers to search for specific vehicle characteristics or license plates, the system helps narrow down our search pool, cutting down on unnecessary patrols and minimizing non-essential encounters with the public. We don't need to stop people who loosely match a description. We stop the right vehicle, the right suspect, and recover the right property. We don't waste officer or community time stopping people who have nothing to do with the crime. We can act on cases that we could not act on before, based on very limited information. From beat cop to analyst to investigator, this game-changing technology optimizes our effectiveness for the benefit of San Diego. It is no secret that we are understaffed and asking more of our officers. Not only does ALPR system help us solve cases more efficiently, it also helps the department save money by reducing the need for wide area patrols to generate leads, some of which require costly overtime. The system is essentially more eyes to make observation in public spaces, providing investigative leads for officers and investigators. We don't want to turn San Diego into a technology desert. This is highly competitive market for people who are still willing to do police work and put their lives on the line. Officers want to work where industry standard technology is brought to bear and makes them better at their jobs. ALPR helps make officers more effective, more focused, and safer, which contributes to overall job satisfaction and operational success. Going into the transparency, system accountability. So Smart Streetlight Program was developed with several existing laws in mind. SB 54, which prevents California law enforcement from assisting in immigration enforcement. SB 34, which prohibits sharing of ALPR data with out-of-state and federal agencies for any reason. And the Trust Ordinance, which requires the city to vet and submit surveillance technologies for review. The technology is initially reviewed and approved. Under the Trust Ordinance, an annual report outlining the use of the technology is submitted and made publicly available. So while it is well known U.S. Customs and Border Protection is tasked with enforcing immigration laws, they also investigate other crimes. In 2024, the department assisted U.S. Customs and Border Protection with human trafficking and kidnapping investigations, as well as an investigation into an assault on one of their officers. The same is true for the Department of Homeland Security, who investigates crimes of narcotics trafficking and internet crimes against children, such as child pornography or sexual child exploitation. In 2024, that is what we assisted HSI with investigating: narcotics trafficking and internet crimes against children. To be clear, we have never assisted U.S. Customs and Border Protection or Homeland Security with the investigation of immigration or reproductive care. That is not our work and contrary to SB 54. After submitting the annual report in April of 2025, the California Department of Justice sent a letter to the department regarding our ALPR use. After several weeks of consulting with Deputy Attorney General Michael S. Cohen, we updated and refined our use policy to reflect a more restrictive approach, and we are now in good standing with the California DOJ. We have since halted all sharing with federal and out-of-state entities, regardless of the reason. This change reflects our commitment to complying fully with state law. We communicated this change internally with a department-wide order issued on May 23rd, 2025, and have updated our use policy to reflect it. After submitting the annual surveillance report, the department discovered it had missed a brief period of unintended outside access between December 29th, 2023 and January 17th, 2024, caused by a Flock error at launch. This error allowed California law enforcement agencies to search SDPD's ALPR database. No data was accessed by federal or out-of-state agencies during this period. We take full responsibility for the reporting omission and resubmitted the revised annual report to include this information. The Privacy Advisory Board was advised of this error in a memo dated June 13th, 2025. This occurred at the beginning of the system launch. A data sharing setting meant to restrict access per our department's direction under the use policy was not properly configured by Flock. This temporarily allowed California law enforcement agencies to search against SDPD's ALPR data. The issue was identified during an early audit and quickly corrected. No further unintended access has occurred since. So we have stopped sharing ALPR data with out-of-state and federal agencies in April. We have never shared with anyone for purposes of immigration enforcement, and we have never shared with anyone to limit reproductive rights. We are moving forward with enhancing quarterly auditing, tracking, and oversight. We have included our Research, Analysis, and Planning Unit, which is the department's internal auditing and controls unit, earlier in the process. On April 25th, 2025, we issued a department order requiring surveillance technology subject matter experts to give enhanced quarterly audits. So some of the examples, we're making the annual report more efficient and accurate. All subject matter experts will now conduct quarterly audits to enhance record keeping and ensure accuracy of the annual report by breaking it into more manageable pieces. This includes random samplings of users, creation of share logs, and quarterly use policy review by the subject matter experts. In addition, RAP will conduct independent audits to confirm log completion, that the policies are current, and the system user access is up to date. Any violations will immediately be reported for RAP for documentation and correction. AOPR data is only accessed by trained, authorized users during an investigation. Images identified as evidence in an investigation are impounded per department procedure. Remaining images not identified as evidence are purged based on the retention schedule. Each user is required to maintain a rotating single sign-on password that is at least 12 characters long and comprised of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Users cannot repeat their last 24 passwords. Further, the San Diego Police Department of Information Technology, which provides an independent review outside of the police department, the Flock AOPR solution was reviewed through the Department of Information Technology IT governance process in accordance with Administrative Regulation 90.68. Flock's technology has demonstrated alignment with city's IT technological and security standards and was approved. In addition to meeting city IT governance requirements, Flock Safety has demonstrated adherence to following cybersecurity industry standards, regulations, attestations, and framework. So they have SOC 2 Type 2, ISO 27001 2022, NIST 853, NIST 853 Rev 5, HIPAA, VPAP, and CISA Secure by Design Pledge. So our auditing process. An AOPR system administrator who holds the supervisory position of sergeant conducts weekly audits of the AOPR program. The audits include checking for user compliance with state and local laws, including compliance with the department's use policy, ensuring that equipment is functioning properly, data is not being retained beyond the established retention period, and that users with access to the program have received the appropriate training and authorization to use the system. The weekly audit consists of verifying that each search has a case number or incident number under the reason for search section, and that the complete case numbers and incident numbers are being used. Additionally, the administrator checks to ensure the case and incident numbers are current and valid, and that they are not repeated over multiple days or by multiple users without reason. While it's not unusual for multiple users to investigate the same case, resulting in multiple searches with the same case or incident number, the system administrator will verify that a valid reason for this exists. Typically, this occurs due to an active police incident where multiple patrol officers are attempting to locate a suspect vehicle immediately following a crime. The audit is also checking for case numbers that do not belong to the San Diego Police Department. Case numbers can be provided by other agencies upon request for a search or from wanted flyers where the suspect is possibly in the city of San Diego. When this occurs, the system administrator verifies the validity of the search. To maintain certification, each authorized user is required to complete annual training. Annual training consists of reviewing department procedures, related department orders, and videos associated with how to use the system. If the annual training is not completed on time, access to their account is disabled. Users can regain access by completing the training and providing a certificate of completion to the system administrator. Since its launch, this technology has proven to be a force multiplier for public safety and is the most significant public safety technology advancement in recent times for our department in San Diego. It has enhanced our ability to not only locate stolen vehicles, identify suspect vehicles, and quickly apprehend suspects from robberies, homicides, and attempted child abductions, but it has also been instrumental in locating 3 missing people. AOPR has saved investigators time by providing strong investigative leads, reduced the need for citywide saturation patrols by identifying the correct suspect vehicle, and eliminated countless unnecessary encounters between law enforcement and the community due to vague suspect vehicle descriptions. When paired with clear use policies and transparent reporting, San Diego can be the leading city in AOPR use and accountability. The partnership with PAB has yielded positive results. The auditing and accountability improvements made in conjunction with PAB have led to nationwide adoption of San Diego standards by our AOPR vendor. We will continue to work on advancements in auditing, accountability, and success tracking with PAB to remain at the forefront of transparency and accountability nationwide. AOPR has done what we hoped it would. It allows us to do more with fewer resources, rapidly solve cases, and make our communities safer. This is the future of precision policing. So with that, if there's any questions or anything you'd like me to address. I'm happy
Thank you
to.
very much. We'll move on to public comment first. Lee?
We have three public, from the audience. Is it Audra or Andra?
Like you said at the same both times, I'm not sure. Just joking. Yes, so this is interesting, because the way you guys talk about you're understaffed and things like that, it's concerning because this leads to the needs for AI. And the county of San Diego has spent $1 billion this year on AI. It's an eighth of the budget. And they're actually doing a study with like $300,000 or so to see if it's going, like how it's going to work. But when we go down that path, and, you know, you talk about technology deserts. I feel like there isn't a technology desert. I feel like there's more and more technology being implemented as the days pass. It's not a lack of it. It's there's too much, and it's leading people down a way of, like, as long as we present it to them to say this is going to help you out, it's going to make your life easier. Like if I take my phone and I pay with my phone, or I have to use biometrics to open my phone, it seems easier, like the way we present it. But at the end of the day, it encroaches further and further on people's just ability to kind of really do anything in life. And, you know, this should have been used for like the invasion that was happening. And you guys talk about federal and state law. Well, federal law supersedes that. And USC 1324, aiding and abetting. I mean, those are things that have been happening with the people coming across the border. I was covering it and I was down at the border and seeing people leave their documents. I mean, the way that people presented this is though it was people are seeking asylum, and that's not the truth. And it's concerning when we continue to, you know, give people a bunch of information that isn't necessarily valid or true. And, you know, when we talk about like this identifying only a car, well, if it only identifies a car, then how would you be able to hold somebody accountable for a crime? Like if it wasn't me that drove my car, but you caught my car in the act of a crime, how are you going to hold somebody accountable if there's no way to determine who it was that was actually driving my vehicle?
Thank you.
Next up is Seth.
Thank you, Board. Seth Hall, speaking for the Trust SD Coalition today. We sent you all a memo, as well as the California Democratic Party and a local group of labor unions that have urged you to reject FLOC. The city today is claiming that no federal agencies accessed San Diego data during the period of the data breach that they disclosed. That's fully not true. They only are saying that because the San Diego Police Department is able to control that data, and they have refused to disclose it. The reality is that during the period of the data breach, California law enforcement agencies outside of San Diego were searching the FLOC ALPR database on behalf of federal agencies. The city's annual report that they have made is missing a section. That section should be entitled Law Enforcement Agency Searches that were on behalf of federal Homeland Security investigation agencies. Only SDPD has this data, but they refuse to release it. They redact it from the public records. And yet they come here and they say it's not happening. You can't prove that because they won't release the data to you. we were able to uncover this data by getting access to those records from those agencies outside of San Diego Police Department, which are more transparent with their records. This goes to the heart of the problem that we're having here, as evidenced by the department's refusal to accept the board's previous recommendations. This city is not ready for the enormous responsibility of using mass surveillance. It is an incredibly powerful tool. It requires incredibly powerful controls that we are clearly not willing to install as a city. They say mass surveillance is the future of precision policing. No, the community will not stand for unaccountable, dishonest use of mass surveillance, and neither should the experts on this board.
Thank you.
Next up is Liam.
Right in here? Good. Hi, my name is Liam. I'm a PhD researcher at UC San Diego. My background is in computer science. I just wanted to echo some of the concerns that were brought up here, just around the issue of data collection, the lack of transparency, frankly, in where it's going, how it's being used. As someone who spends a lot of time on UC San Diego's campus, the folks that I work with, we have an understanding of the precarity, I think, of the situation that we're in, considering the current federal administration. And it is just really concerning that it feels like these questions about how data is being used and how it's being shared comes across, there's an error here in the Flock database, for instance, or there's going to be the next unanticipated moment where data is breached, where we're not sure where it's going, where it's unclear if it's being shared with federal administration, to what extent. I think just a lot of this generates fear. And if we're talking about the need for trust in the city as a way for folks to be able to live their everyday lives, I'm just here to say that that is really something that is felt as a concern around how this data is being used. And I really do ask that we implement the recommendations of the Privacy Advisory Board and the community groups that have spoken here over the last 2 years within our use policies at minimum. Thank you.
Thank you.
2 minutes, yes.
Any other public comment from the people are here now?
No other speakers here in person. However, we do have several people in the queue with their hands raised, and so we will go with Lily Irani first. Lily, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi there. I really appreciate your deliberation on Flock, and I'm speaking in personal capacity today, but I fully support Seth's comments on the behalf of the Trust Coalition. I just wanted to draw our attention to one thing, which has not been mentioned. In Colorado, Flock Safety, the company operating these license plate readers, had told the public that Border Patrol didn't have direct access to their databases, but in Colorado, journalists actually found that the company was operating a pilot program with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So this is a company that's been deceptive. This is a company that is a for-profit company, so it will continue to develop partnerships to build out its market, and those partnerships will be with the government. They have failed in so many ways to be transparent and have been openly deceptive. For example, about this CBP pilot, the Colorado journalists found. And recently they're advertising that they are operating AI that will run on drones that'll travel over the city, kind of going into the spaces where their license plate readers mounted on light poles can't. This is not a company that we want to trust in setting the vision for safety in our city, no matter how many safeguards we put in place in our use and auditing policies. Thank you very much. I cede my time.
Thank you, Lily. Next, we will go to Hamira YM.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, and you are good to go.
Thank you. This is Hamira Yusufi with PANA. And I just want to say that at a time where federal law enforcement agencies are armed and coming into our communities with no regard for our civil rights and civil liberties, and are detaining and deporting immigrants, or essentially anyone they don't like, we have to really think about what will we allow into our communities. We have to think about who are these technologies being used against and who are we putting into harm's way. We have learned that our city's data was illegally accessed by out-of-state agencies over 12,000 times in a matter of weeks. We know that San Diego's Flock's data was accessed by out-of-state agencies who were searching our Flock data for the purpose of aiding federal homeland security. This SDPD can stand here and say they haven't assisted in immigration or enforcement, but they already broke the law and illegally shared that data. And then they hid it. And they continuously redact data that would prove that they are sharing this data and have no independent auditing procedures in place to prove otherwise. After all of this, the updated use policies don't have the recommendations that were made by the community or the Privacy Advisory Board. We have learned that there's no safe way to protect San Diegans from federal overreach and still have Flock technology in our streets and in our communities. Please look at all the other cities across the country who are rejecting their ALPR contracts given the political realities of our time. We ask that you reject the use policy of ALPRs and recommend that they are shut down immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Humaira. Next, we are going to go to CJ. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello, I am Dr. CJ Valasek. I'm speaking on behalf of myself today. I'm also a scholar of technology and surveillance. So I wanted to, share a little bit about that research and urge you to recommend ending the ALPR program here. As already brought up, many other cities are rethinking their contracts, ending their contract with Flock. And we know some of these cases, like in Texas, where the Texas Sheriff's Office used Flocks to search for a woman who accessed reproductive care. We know this when it comes to using Flock data for immigration enforcement. And that's not what we want to see here, right? I'm a longtime resident in San Diego. This is not what we want to see. These systems have been rolled out in cities across the world, from Boston to London, but the research shows they don't deliver on their promises. A 2023 review, an academic review, found that the costs often outweigh any supposed benefits, and a 2025 multi-site study found no clear link between ALPR expansion and reductions in violent crime. We see too in another book by a scholar, Predict and Surveil is the title, and she looked at how LAPD used ALPRs to focus on over-policing of working-class immigrant and Black and brown communities, right? Not because of actual crime patterns, but because those neighborhoods are already over-policed. So more surveillance produces more data, and that data is then used to justify more policing. So we're seeing that here in San Diego. Talk to many immigrant or refugee residents, and they'll tell you they're worried about their privacy when it comes to this data. Their fears are justified, as pointed out. The SDPD shared the ALPR data. So I urge you to end this. Thank you.
Thanks, CJ. And then our last speaker is Khalid. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello?
Khalid, can you hear us? Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. Hello, Privacy Advisory Board members. I just wanted to thank you for everything that you do. As a former board member, I know just how much work is actually being done behind the scenes. So I'm, very grateful for you taking the time to keep all of us safe from government overreach. The community has been bringing up these concerns even before PAB was created. And the police said, trust us. Once PAB was created, PAB and the larger community continued to ask questions and express concerns. The police said, trust us. City Council asked questions, and the police said, trust us. Well, we don't. We don't trust them, and we don't trust Flock, but we do trust the Privacy Advisory Board. We trust you to represent the interests of all San Diegans, no matter whether they have badges or guns on their hips, in order to keep us safe and to keep us protected from everybody. They said they wouldn't do all of the things they just said that they did. They wouldn't share it with California Border Patrol. They wouldn't share it with federal government. They wouldn't share it with other law enforcement agencies, but they did. not because they think they should, not because they apologized it, but not because they think they should apologize or because they made a mistake, but because the DOJ said they were breaking the law. So unless you have a connection with the DOJ that's willing to babysit and watch their daily use and prevent them from misusing it and breaking the law as they already have, then we shouldn't allow them access to this technology. They simply are not ready for it. They cannot handle it. I today am calling in to ask that PAB does everything they can to recommend that the city rejects Flock completely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Khalid. And Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Now, board comment, and what I'd like to do is both combine your comments and also any questions you have on the presentation. And we can start with whoever wants to go first. And by the way, let the record reflect that Matt Stamper did fight traffic all the way from North County, and it is here. He is our newest member of PAB, and he is also an expert in cybersecurity and knows what all the SOC 2, Part 2, and all those numbers and things mean. So welcome. Right. Who would like to go first?
I think a large portion of that sounds familiar to a lot of us, right? We've seen what the uses of it are, what it's meant to do, what it's not meant to do, how it's deployed, right? How it actually is used, right? Not how it's meant to be, but how it's used in practice. So it's super helpful. It would be very helpful if we could just focus on like, right, what has changed since the last time we've been here, right? What are some of the comments to the PAB committee insight? Because that's something that's been really pressing here. The community, overwhelming from Trust SD Coalition, more and more questions as to, can we just take a step back and at least consider how we got here and if we can. I believe last time we had this conversation, it was, can we even pursue alternate technologies? And I think Flock was even here to demonstrate, to talk about why their brand, right, was so trusted amongst law enforcement and entities, municipalities across the country. So we got insight as to why they're used, but it'd be great to kind of get more insight as to a bit more justification, like why not, right? Why can't we take a step back and consider other routes?
My concern here, to be honest with you, is that I'm actually a big fan of technology and we should be utilizing as much as we can. I know some people in the audience may disagree, but the technology is important. The issue I've got is the statements frequently that we are short of resources and we're doing our best. And a lot of the controls and things I'm seeing is more after the fact. It's, what do you call it? Identifying breaks rather than preventing breaks. I'd rather see the prevention and front-end controls rather than back-end controls. And I actually don't see that these are fully established yet, but I just don't know, right? And I don't know the level of detail as to what specifically you're testing each time when you do the audits, et cetera. So there's a human nature to feel that if we don't have all the information, that it's not there. And that's probably something that you need to rectify by being more specific as to here's specifically what we've done instead of these general comments that you've made. I mean, they're good comments, but we need to be more specific.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for going over the presentation. I have some few questions. With regards to deletion of the data every 13 days, my question is that enough time for this data to be useful for San Diego Police Department if it's deleted every 13 days? Is it kept somewhere else and deleted from the storage, or is it just deleted completely, permanently every 13 days?
For the streetlight cameras, the video, it is permanently deleted every 13 days.
And has that been useful, being kept for just 13 days?
We have run into some issues with it where there's delays in reporting or just delays in being able to get those investigative leads that point us to the direction that, hey, it turns out our suspect did go down the street or something did happen here. And we find out about that information on day 14 or day 15. So 13 days for our video is what we currently retain to, but we have run into a few incidents during investigations where additional time would have been beneficial to help get some leads in those.
And is there a source for this policy for the 13 days? Like how did SDPD come by the 13-day policy that every 13 days this data needs to be deleted?
So 13 days for the video, that was something that we came up to when we went through the ordinance process. We came to 13 days working with community input on retention for the video, as well as what the limitations of that service could do. So you kind of get to the point where we can retain 13 days in like a high definition. But if you go beyond that, it starts to degrade the definition of the video to the point where, so we're trying to strike that balance and optimize while still keeping it at a reasonable time.
Okay, thank you. With regards to a single sign-on password, what other platforms or assets do you have? Because single sign-on means that if there is 13 other websites used by San Diego Police Department, it means that one password get access to all these 13 websites. Is there a number specifically for the single sign-on that one password is able to access, including the ALPR data?
Yeah. So we go through, it's through the city, through Okta is the program that we use.
Oh, through Okta, okay.
So it's all through Okta.
So one password gets access to every single website used by San Diego Police Department?
Within our environment, yes.
Okay. Has that caused issues with everybody having access? Because you also mentioned that people get training in order to get access to this data, but if it's a single sign-on, it means that every single person with their password is able to access this data as well.
I see what you're saying. No, it doesn't, because we're able to go in as system administrators, we can go into the operating system and we can remove individual passwords. So we do it at a system level as administrators, and we could go in there and we can pick specific users and shut their access off.
Okay.
You mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Follow to y'all's question there. Do people have when they access it, are they required to access from a certain location? Are they able to access it remotely? How is the actual access of data done from officers?
Yeah, so they access it through city computers or city phones. So it can be remotely, as you say, through phones.
Or in a patrol car, for
Yeah,
example.
or your patrol car, absolutely.
But it can be done also at home, and it has been done at members' home.
No, because they would go through the Okta city sign-on.
You can still go through a VPN and connect to the city just while working from home.
Right, those are generally, yeah, but you're going through.
I'm just curious, is that done currently?
Not that I'm aware of, that anybody's using on like personal computers or anything like that, no.
What we do is obviously is governed by the city IT governance process. They've vetted out that this technology will be, again, I won't know the appropriate computer term, forgive me. It rides on our system through the Okta, and we had to make sure through IT governance that the Flock product met the guidelines of and per your asks, we also on the I believe it's called it a performance audit. You asked, hey, what list of certifications as well? So there's the baseline of that IT governance process, and it would not be on the Okta system and accessible on a phone or a laptop or a city computer or even a patrol car in that single sign-on basis if it was not approved by the city through the IT governance process to be on that Okta system. It had to ride through that.
So your when it comes to the Okta process, right? Your system administrators are able to go in and say, these board members, right? They're able to only give access to maybe Tim. And if we do the single sign-on, it means that we are not going to have access to the data from the ALPR. Is that correct?
So you have to be an authorized user, and the gatekeeper is going to be Sergeant McAndrew and his. I just demoted him, Lieutenant McAndrew and his sergeants. Forgive me. When I'm here, I always go down a rank. for my part, you have to be authorized through the system administrator. Just because you have a city Okta password, as if you're at wastewater, you're not going to get into this system. If that was the nature of your question, you have to be an authorized user.
Okay, last question, then you can do follow-up. So throughout your presentation, fantastic benefits, right? But as we can see from our various board meetings, a lot of our, community concerned members are definitely questioning the benefits of ALPR. They are questioning the usage. They are worried about other people in their communities, right, being used, under nefarious purposes. What are some of the lessons learned in terms of what are some of the disadvantages that SDPD has come to recognize or been cognizant of with regards to using this technology? Because it can't just be all positive, right? Like it was presented. What are some of the disadvantages that can validate some of the concerns of the community in regards to the use of this technology?
Well, I'll be frank with you. In my 26 years of being a cop with the city of San Diego, I've spent my whole career here serving San Diego. I have not seen a tool more powerful to solve crime and make people safe. We are not doing immigration enforcement. We are currently in good standing with the California Department of Justice. And, the issues that we had before were pertaining to state crimes. And other cities and their other municipalities in the state of California are answerable to the same laws that we're answerable to in how they use ALPR data. So I don't run other police departments, and as we currently sit, we are not linked into. We kind of sit on an island here. We are sort of on our own with regard to feeding in and feeding out on our Flock system. I can't. I mean, people have fears, and people are entitled to their fears. We are here, we're working with the PAB, we're trying to show how this technology works and what it's not, and what we're not doing with it. We're not here to do immigration enforcement, we're not doing reproductive rights enforcement. This process and this technology was approved by council. I mean, there are no downsides, to being compliant with the law. We are working to comply, and like I said, the issues that we've had, we've corrected. And it continues to be a tremendous, and I know that people have concerns about the issue of, like, we have fewer and fewer resources. We do. I mean, that does not necessarily mean that, we are looking to, have some digital dragnet. This is precise. We use it for what we're looking for. And to answer to an earlier question, we have to go to another database that is audited where we can get personal identifying information. So this system is useful to us as a pointing system to solve crimes, and it works.
Yeah, I don't envy the position you're in, right? Being a border city, a very large border city with a very interesting shape to the border, so to the city, or to actually have to be responsible for some very high traffic, high profile stuff, not to mention things that are happening downtown itself here. And so you'll probably hear a lot of people who probably are demanding a lot more, not just what we have for surveillance, but even more. We could be going a lot further in terms of clamping down and surveilling. But there's that medium, right? We heard from voices today from members of the community that we've been hearing from for years. Members of the community like Humaira, Lily, Seth, they've been writing the tapestry of how this privacy battle has gone down for over a decade now, right? Back when we were working in the ShotSpotter era. The overriding theme is, even when you do things the right way, right? Even when you commit to doing things right and you succeed, it can still be a shortcoming from the sense the community can still be exposed to harm from what we see here with the 13,000 more like accesses. How can we be sure, right? And it won't happen again, we're sorry. There's a process in place that the PAB is administering so that we're minimizing that, but how can the communities actually feel, right, that things are gonna be any different? And that's something that's hard to really build, again, that trust, even when you're doing things as you believe to do the right way. So that's something that I wanna help push from the board perspective. How can we help restore that and do our part? as a PAB. Because even if, whether or not technology sails on, I think that bond has been broken, and maybe people in the community are probably not going to want to work with the police in the future, and maybe entities in the city in the future. So we should probably consider that strongly here. Not really a question for you guys, but if you have anything that have you seen in the past decade or so that's helped things, we're happy to work with you.
I also want to just be frank. The last time I spoke before the Public Safety Subcommittee of Council, a video was played that it showed an arrest by the Maritime Task Force of the federal government on an immigration arrest that had nothing to do with us, and we were painted with that brush. We had nothing to do with that, and we're still held to answer for it, and that's why we're here. That's why, and I understand fear is not rational, but wherever we can, we account to what we do, we account to what's ours. That's our job. But even as we had nothing to do with something that happened in our community, that was the issue of the federal government, we were still held to answer for it. So I understand both sides.
There was almost a moment, right? I think with some of the protests that we saw, and the police stood forward, and there was a bit of a positive relationship. And then, like, how do we build on things like that, where can something be that halfway? Even initiatives that you would say, hey, maybe, right? Maybe in terms of ALPR, we're hearing something, a bone to throw out or something, not necessarily a concession even making, but a concession that can be made. We're not talking huge leaps. We're not talking about immediately throwing things out, pausing forever. Can some things help restore the bond here?
So, sorry, I have a last question or comment. So, Captain, I do understand we could say being painted with a bad brush because of, another federal agency or, institution access could be some sort of occupational hazard, right? For SDPD in particular. But from your perspective, professionally, do you think the concerns of these community advocates are valid in terms of their, not just fear, but their concerns with regards to privacy and the use of this technology in San Diego?
People are entitled to their fears. Your lived experience is yours. I'm not here to strip anyone of their lived experience. I'm here to account for what we do. I'm here to answer to what we do. And so I would never say a person's fear is invalid. People own their emotions. They're entitled to their emotions, and I'm not here to strip that away. I'm here to answer to the best I can, and ultimately council will vote their conscience after we've shown that we are here working with the PAB. We're working to comply. We're doing our level best to bring this technology to bear in a way that brings safety to San Diego. That's what we're here to do.
So with regards to that, right? If San Diego Police Department is here to protect and to serve, then I think we need to bridge that gap, that communication gap in terms of either branding or public image to let the community understand that, okay, this technology is for your safety. And whatever their concerns are, we definitely need to make sure we factor it into the part of the communication for them to get that level of understanding that this technology is for their benefit, right? We can say it's for their benefit all we want, but if they are against it, then it beats the purpose of SDPD using this technology to help protect and to serve them as part of the community efforts.
That's understood, and I think we can always do a better job about communicating efficacy and safety, and that we are not in the immigration business.
One simple question. Is it possible just to, quite frankly, disclose all access to the database, everything? I mean, not necessarily on a line-by-line basis, but just every statistic. Who had access? Sworn officers from San Diego, which departments? There's enough metadata that it's not going to compromise the inspections, but at least we can see that no one had access. If we reconcile, no one had access from outside computers or computers outside San Diego or something like that. Is that possible?
We can look into what the audits are. I believe the audit log, I know the audit log does show every person that's in there. They're all through the San Diego Police Department. There's nobody outside of the police. There's nobody in the mayor's office or anything like that that has access to the system. It's only the San Diego Police Department and only people who have received the training and the authorization through the system administrators. So we can look into what that would look like to present it in a way that's understandable and easy to digest.
So just being an auditor, just a simple reconciliation, if you got something from Flock saying there were 10,000 accesses during the month, whatever number, and then you can reconcile and say, well, look at all of these 10,000 were shown from our San Diego officers, period. And we know that's good. That means no one outside San Diego accessed.
Yeah, yes, we
That
can do
doesn't
that.
sound
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, I mean,
And if there was somebody from outside of San Diego, there may be a reason and that can be explained. And if there's not a good reason, then it can be addressed.
There will be nobody
There's
from
no
outside of
reason
San Diego.
Which is
for that.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is something that I think we can absolutely facilitate and get into a,
I think that put all the disclosure issues to rest.
Yeah, and I don't want to cut anybody off, but we do have a presentation after this. So I want to keep things moving. All the discussion has been great, but I'm just mindful of the time. Matt?
I'll
Yeah,
just
no,
be-
and I don't want to, I didn't mean to say that to rush you, so I.
No worries at all. I'll be brief, but when I'm not stuck in traffic, I'm a chief information security officer. I'm kind of paid to be paranoid about applications, technology, and security related to the same. Despite the fact that organizations have certifications and audits, like the SOC 2 Type 2 audit, the ISO certification, did the city or the San Diego PD, did you get a chance to look at any other types of like pen testing results, maybe an API inventory, API calls, as my colleague Jan noted in our review of this? And is the PD open to kind of delving a little bit more in depth around the platform and its security?
You tell us how, and because again, I'm a guy that loves acronyms. Clearly, you do too. But you tell us how and what you require, and we will. I'll speak to Flock, speak to Ubiquia, and say, show us these things.
Exactly. And I guess to my point is effectively all the actions that occur within a system, assuming that logging is there. So that's something that needs to be verified. But if the logging is enabled and the retention period associated with those logs is appropriate, then there's zero ambiguity about what did or did not occur. You have a forensic track record of what's happened within the system, and that could assuage a lot of concerns, just like we've heard from the community and elsewhere, related to the platform. So,
yeah.
but there's things that are kind of deeper where there may be blind spots in that telemetry, especially to Ya's point in our analysis on this, like on the API calls and third-party components that might go into what Flock has built. That will probably warrant a bit of a double click at some point in the future.
No, absolutely. And the vendors, we've reached out to both of them. They're more than happy to work with us on this, and we can work together, and you can help me steer that ship and point them in the direction of what it is we need to see and what we're looking for. And then, how to better understand what it is. So, I mean, that's the partnership, right, that we're trying to build is how do we do that? How do we make this safer, more secure? And as long as you're willing to help us walk through that process, I know.
And
our
speak the
vendors are.
language.
And speak the language. That's the big one for us.
Exactly.
Yeah, we can absolutely facilitate that.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
And the chair wishes to thank Mr. Stamper for volunteering his time to help. Thank you. Any other public comment or questions? Yeah.
Yeah, 2 quick comments, 2 quick questions. I'll try to be quick. So with everything that everybody said today and all the different developments that are going on with Flock around the country, with people pulling out of their contracts, finding out that they do have pilot programs with federal government agencies and things of that nature. First question, why do you all still feel like Flock is the company that you all should be using with all that going on?
Our contracting, our use policies, our ownership of the data through the contract gives me the confidence to say that, and also knowing that it's against the law to share on immigration in California, that they provide a great product, and we have to comply with the law. So I mean, what happens in other states, I'm not answerable to. And if they're doing something different elsewhere, That's not us. We set up the contract in the way that they're answerable to, they said they're answerable to California law, they're answerable to our contract in California, they're answerable to the trust ordinance. So I'm confident that we can continue to do right here.
In addition, as a vendor, Flock has worked with us. And I know one of the early on, the auditing issues that we were looking at was the metadata, entering case numbers, incident numbers. We worked with the vendor, we called out and we're like, this has to be a requirement. Not just for San Diego, but they rolled that out nationwide. So a lot of what is coming from the PAB from our city is impacting nationwide, and Flock has stepped in and they said, we're willing to help work with you. We know that KPIs are something that the board's looking at and is asking for. I've been in meetings with them and they're like, help us help you. What do you want? They're pulling together teams and we're in meetings, and how can we track data better? How can we show that it's being effective? It's not being effective. What are the pros? What are the cons? And they're working with us to do that. So they've been a good partner to that in that regard of things that are passed on, pulling these audit logs, stuff like that. We go back to them and like, whatever you guys want, we'll show you how it works. So they have helped us in that. And that I think has been a very positive.
Your work ripples out nationwide. And so I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of value added here that you guys get to shape, well, outside of the city of San Diego, nationwide.
Well, thank you for that. And yeah, we do realize San Diego is a really big influence in some of those areas, and that's why we try to work so hard to ask those questions and get those things answered. Earlier, Seth had stated that through other entities' data, he has found that basically our data breaches were on behalf of federal government. I don't have that data. I don't know. I don't see that data. But my question is, in the event that it's found that there's a pilot program in San Diego through Flock with HSI or anything that, would you all be willing to terminate the contract?
It's against the law for us to share with the federal government for immigration purposes. We can't do that.
Right, but what I'm asking is, if it's found that in San Diego, we also have a pilot program that Flock has, that they're giving data to HSI, a federal government agency, would you all be willing to terminate your contract with Flock based on the fact that they're sharing data with the federal government?
That they're sharing our data?
Yes.
Well, that would be a breach of our
Yeah, that's a
contract.
breach of- that would be a breach of our contract.
So it would, yeah, that would be a problem.
That's a yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, that would be,
That
a
would-
pro- yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? So I just want to make some concluding comments and then we'll move on quickly to Ted and then our special guest speaker, which is, everyone should definitely wait for because she will be fantastic. So a number of the public comments, which are always very useful, I think can be categorized into a couple of areas. One is the notion that technology and surveillance technology can be used in sort of a creeping mission sort of form, where it starts off with one use and then the use expands over time, which can be very, very dangerous in the privacy area. And also just ensuring that new technologies that the city of San Diego adopts are identified as surveillance technologies, if that's what they are, and then also addressed. And then that's where we come in with a strong use policy and strong annual surveillance reports. And so just to remind everybody, I've said this before, but to everybody, our approach here is to really focus on ALPRs first and foremost, because we really are, as we've said a number of times, we're building the plane as we're learning to fly it. Both this board and also the police department and certainly the rest of the departments in the city of San Diego. So we are really focusing a lot on ALPRs. There is a vital public need to focus on those. And so they make a particularly good example or a good focus of our attention, I think, for everybody to really work on and perfect when it comes to the use policy, the annual surveillance reports, and then making sure that entire system works together to fulfill these goals. And we also have the Privacy Advisory Board. Also, we formed a committee that is working directly with the police department. I can, it's sort of a trust but verify. I don't want people in the community to think that we're just being led down the lane and whatever the police tell us, we believe them. I think they would probably vehemently disagree with that because we've been questioning them and re-questioning them and questioning them again, and they have been cooperative with us. So I greatly appreciate that. But the goal really is to figure all this stuff out now, both to protect San Diegans from ALPRs specifically, and then also the other surveillance technologies that are in use, not just by the police department, but in most departments throughout the city of San Diego. You know, any one of which could be weaponized, you know, probably by the federal government if we're not careful. And sadly, every day it seems like we're getting closer and closer to that dismal reality that I would not have thought was even possible. So thank you for your continued work. This is really an interim report that they have given us on what they've been doing with those matters, and the committee continues to work with the police department, and I do think they're working very hard to try to get it right. So with that, let's move on to the next agenda item. We'll just do this briefly. Ted, if you could just update us on our efforts to improve the website. Yes. You go first. Yeah, you give your report and then we'll take public comment.
Thank you. So as you all know, we've been trying to, and we talked about this, I think, a little bit in the last meeting, we've been trying to make the privacy advisory website more user-friendly, right? There's a lot of documents on there that just have document names and random numbers on there. So we're trying to make it so that when you look at it, it's something that you know exactly what it is when you click on it, and it takes you to a place that it's very easy and legible, not legible, but it's an easy read on you, and it's not just language, jarble. So we've been trying to implement that, and with what you all said today, I think that was a really good update. We should be trying to get public input on there as well, so that if there's something that maybe that was brought up that was important or a point of interest, that can be referenced to the public as well. But our main goal with updating the website is just to make sure it's more user-friendly, make sure that when you're opening different tabs, you can see what it is and you understand what tab you're clicking on, and just making sure that the documents from our reports and our comments are on there and readable for you all too, so that everything is out in the open, everything is transparent. And if you want to question us, that you can report and question us. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Any public comment?
Actually, we have one public comment, Andra.
So I think it's important to have this information accessible to the people so that people understand the technology that's going on. I think also public input to show, like, are people approving of this? Is this something that the people want, or is this something that the people don't want? And maybe even have a portal on there where people can provide input. I mean, where they could say, hey, this is something that I'd like to know more information about, or if you could, you know, let us know what this is really for, what kind of data is going to be shared, because I think a lot of times the police will come in, and they are more helpful now, but in the beginning of this whole board being implemented, they weren't. They were actually really kind of pushing back as far as giving information. And I think that the more transparency that people have, like literally what is this technology going to be used for, and making sure that these people are being, that like the police is being held accountable, because the outside of them saying that they're not going to share the data gets shared because there's subscriptions to it, right? So it's like, as long as people understand that, because it's like, we may not agree on why this technology should be here. I think it's an encroachment on people's rights. And as far as immigration goes, we have different opinions, and that's okay. But I think that the people need to understand like everything that's going on with this, so that they can maybe need to come in here and talk to you guys about it, or feel like they need to let other people know. So I just think the more transparent we can be, the better, so that people just, you know, that's the whole reason why I think like having things live is good, so that people know exactly what's going on around them.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Nobody else in person, and not seeing anybody else with their hand raised in the queue. You are good for discussion.
Great, thank you very much. Next discussion item, come on up, Julia. So while she's walking up, we are exceedingly happy to have Julia Crushell here. She is from the City and County of San Francisco. She manages the data privacy work for the City and County. She previously researched emerging technologies, privacy, and technology policy as a staff technologist at the second best law school in Washington, D.C., Georgetown Law School. I went to George Washington. With their Center on Privacy and Technology. During her time at Georgetown Law, she became an expert on biometric technologies and spoke at international conferences about comparing legal frameworks for biometric technologies across the US, the EU, and Latin America. She was also a web and software developer at the NYU Governance Lab. She has a master's degree in public policy and modern Middle Eastern studies from the University of Chicago and a bachelor's degree from Wellesley College. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction. And I would really like to thank the Privacy Advisory Board for inviting me to speak today. And I'd also like to thank all the members of the public we have here for their time and attention to these matters. And today I'll be presenting on the fundamentals of privacy policy in government. And even though I did have a great introduction, I'll just give you a little bit of my background and my perspective here. I manage the privacy and surveillance technology work in San Francisco, and I currently work for the City and County of San Francisco, but I am here in my capacity as a privacy professional and my perspective in that regard, not as a representative of the City and County of San Francisco. And I have experience in advocacy and academic research around privacy, public policy, and emerging technologies. And I want to frame what I'm going to talk about today as privacy policy in theory and practice. And you can ask, what does that mean? Well, I think of the theory as what's on paper. You know, law is about the ideas that we want to implement in our city, in our jurisdiction, in our society, and the practice of it is the administration of the law, the operationalizing of that law, and you have to combine the two to make anything work within a government, within a jurisdiction effectively. So we're going to be talking about both of those subjects and how to combine them and what I've learned from my experience. And I've broken this down into 5 subgroups. That's privacy as foundational principle, defining surveillance technology, procurement checks, annual reports, and best practices and lessons learned, recommendations for privacy programs. So I'm going to start with privacy as a foundational principle. And you might ask, what does that mean? And I think it's really important that one establishes privacy as being foundational to government work. We can look at different examples within cybersecurity, healthcare, financial examples of instances where data was not protected and there were critical breaches in the private sector. This is possible in the public sector as well. And the government, government entities have a lot of data that they can get from people either because they require it, such as, when people pay their taxes, when people participate, say, in, public health programs, clinics, things like that. And just, for things that they might opt into, like getting a permit or participating in utilizing a service that the government offers. Government entities have a even higher expectation of maintaining privacy than corporations, although I think the bar should be very high for both because, again, they are sometimes requiring that certain information is provided. So to that end, privacy should be at the very beginning of all the technology policy work that we do in the government. And I think it's really important when establishing a privacy program to meet people where they are, but to work to standardize definitions. Ideas about what privacy and surveillance technology are can be very personal, and that's understandable. These are concepts that get at the very heart of what people value and also things that can have a very high degree of harm if they are misused. But we need to understand in the context of these conversations that we're referencing a jurisdictional or another standardized definition and talk about that within the context of operationalizing whatever the law is in that jurisdiction. And to have a foundation for this, it's my recommendation that there should be dedicated privacy staff and a centralized website where materials such as policies and reports can be posted for the public and for departments as well. And sort of to continue this, privacy as a benefit to government work and departments as part of this foundation. Some departments in the government or some workers in the government may think of privacy solely in terms of compliance, more paperwork, more burden on their departments, but really putting the time in to make surveillance technology policies or to build in privacy into their work and their frameworks really benefits local government departments because it helps them proactively solve problems. When you keep data safe, that means you need to anticipate issues before they happen. And that is something that you need to consider every aspect of the data lifecycle. So collecting data, how using it, storing it, sharing it, and disposing of it. To think of at every stage in that life cycle, what the vulnerabilities can be, and creating policies and systems that do everything they can to negate those risks, or at least to minimize them. That's something that in government we should be doing with all our systems. Keeping products and services safe for all people is an extension of this, but also it builds trust in the community in services and in technologies that are being used. It also can prevent lawsuits if data is managed responsibly, which obviously governments want to avoid if they can. And it has the benefit of getting ahead of state and federal regulations. If departments and programs build privacy within their systems, then when things are inevitably required by the state or by federal law, they're already ahead of the game. They don't need to catch up. They already have systems that may fit future laws and future legislation. Ultimately, privacy should be considered first and not as an afterthought in city technology work or any jurisdictional technology work. And privacy experts and professionals can serve as a nexus for other departments and other work, such as data work, information technology work, cybersecurity, and other policy and legal teams within a jurisdiction to protect user data. So you might have a question, how do you operationalize this? Every city department should have at least one designated lead privacy policy contact. This person would be the department's in-house contact, and they would develop familiarity with policy creation, reporting, and other privacy processes or requirements. And that contact can communicate with their department and find subject matter experts within the department if necessary. And it's really important to have these sort of consistent contacts within departments because they can serve as a liaison between the people who are working in privacy in the city and all the rest of the people in that department. And it can decrease the need to retrain and re-explain to everyone in the department, from the privacy person or the person who's working on policy who needs to have these conversations. And it can also help privacy staff to flag issues that someone with an insider's perspective on the department would understand. An example of this can be that some departments may have extensive internal approvals due to their department board or commission needing to review policies before they go to a public meeting. That's something that if you aren't in the department, you wouldn't know, and it's good to have an insider's perspective on things like that. So I alluded earlier to definitions of surveillance technology and looking at the law and building this around what the law says. I'm going to discuss that next. So surveillance technology has a legal definition in the context of the San Diego Trust Ordinance, as well as in any other local ordinance. However, people have their own personal definitions of what surveillance technology is or isn't, and I think that's very natural, right? But in the sense of when something is determined to be a surveillance technology according to the ordinance definition, when you're discussing with the department, you need to communicate that surveillance technology meets the legal definition. It doesn't fall into one of the exemption categories, and it has the potential to be used as surveillance. Something that I've found is that many people think of surveillance as a negative term and assume that if they have no malicious intent for the technology use, that there's no possibility for surveillance at all. And what's vital is that this possibility is addressed, because if something is determined to be, by definition, a surveillance technology, that means that it could be, the data from it could be used to surveil, and it could be used maliciously, or even it could just be lost in a data breach or something like that. There's still sensitive information that's being collected, and that technology and any data is being managed safely, responsibly, and transparently. One way to understand the definition of privacy or put it into a context for someone else is to consider it as a matter of scale. Privacy centers around the data security of the individual, while cybersecurity focuses on the security of networks. And I like to tell people I think of privacy and cybersecurity kind of like cousins. Both are important, but they're approaching the same issue, information security, from different perspectives and different scales. Different departments come with differing needs as well as differing levels of experience with surveillance technologies. However, they all have the responsibility to keep personal data and systems secure to the best of their ability. And this means anticipating what can go wrong before it does and being proactive about any vulnerabilities. And I just want to bring this up. This might be useful to any discussion we have on this, but two terms that are important to this discussion are personally identifiable information, or PII, which is any data that can be personally identified, or that can personally identify an individual, which includes but is not limited to name, address, phone number, license plate number, social security number, credit card information, and biometric information. The list goes on, but this is just a brief summary. Some PII is more sensitive than others, but all data must be mindfully managed, and oftentimes more than one type of PII is collected by any one surveillance technology. And protected health information is health data that can be linked to, or PHI, I should say, is health data that can be linked to an individual, which includes but is not limited to name, birth date, insurance card numbers, medical records and imaging, medical device IDs, and serial numbers. And now I'll be going into procurement checks, the value of them, and some best practices around them. So just some fundamentals. Procurement checks, even if a department is aware of a surveillance technology definition, department staff are not always able to make their own determinations as to what is or is not a surveillance technology, because that may just not be their area of expertise, and that's understandable. We all have our own areas of expertise, but for the most complete inventory, surveillance technology inventory that is, it's helpful to have a procurement check for technology purchases in order to be able to screen what technologies are being purchased to see if they fit the definition. This could be conducted by either a privacy professional or a procurement staff member who is familiar with the jurisdiction's legal definition of surveillance technology. And some recommendations I have from my experience here is surveillance technology checks should be made a part of the workflow of any other procurement check, like a cybersecurity check, for example. Staff submitting a procurement, so on behalf of their department, trying to buy a certain technology, can fill out a form to give to staff evaluating the procurement. So again, that's either the procurement staff, department staff member, or privacy professional staff member, so that they have the information they need to make that determination. Department staff, so the department staff that are submitting the request, should be given guidance as to what does or does not make something a surveillance technology, so that they can best make these determinations proactively and or help staff making the determination to provide them with relevant information. This sometimes leads to departments just being able to proactively identify these technologies and come directly to whoever's managing these programs, which is another way of making sure that the inventories are correct. So I've put together a list of some possible next steps from least amount of effort to most amount of effort. So someone could work their way down this list and, something that you could do quickly versus something that might take a little more time to put together. The least amount of effort would be to create guidance documents, both for those department staff who are submitting a request, and also a guidance document and a rubric for staff making that determination and training on what surveillance technology is according to the ordinance, the local ordinance definition and any exemptions. That's something that would take not too much time to put together, but it would be a really important, piece of guidance. Something that's kind of in the middle is integrating a surveillance technology check into existing processes, whatever the procurement process is within the jurisdiction, and having more comprehensive training for all relevant procurement staff and departmental staff. So that would be something like online or in-person training where people could maybe ask more questions, something like that. And then the most effort or most time or staff intensive would be to maybe build a forum or a platform to make the communications between department staff and procurement check staff much easier. Something where they wouldn't have to actively email back and forth, and then to create a backend database to have an inventory of decisions so that there could be some explanation for why a decision was made, whether something was or wasn't surveillance technology. This is beneficial because then if in 2 years someone asks, well, why was this decision made? You can always reference it and it'll give you can put it, oh, it fit this exemption, or it didn't actually collect PII, or whatever the reason may be. All right, this leads us to annual reports, another important part of the process. Just very high level, the process of annual reporting should be standardized and consistent for departments. Departments should be provided with a template or some form to complete the report so that it's straightforward, and it should be based on the ordinance definition or the ordinance terms around what should be in the report. Departments should be given enough advance notice to complete the reports. In my experience, depending on how many questions they need to answer, I would say 3 to 4 weeks at least should be given to departments to complete it. Maybe more if they have more reports to complete. Privacy staff should then be able to review the reports for completeness, thoroughness, and consistency. And those reports should be, as I mentioned earlier, publicly posted to a centralized place so people can review them and there's transparency around this. So my advice for those who are reporting, departments that are completing an annual report, that the report is intended to be a transparency measure for the public and the jurisdiction's elected officials. It also can be an opportunity for the reporting department to give an accurate account of a technology performance over the reporting period. So reports could be an opportunity for the department to demonstrate the success of a program and how a certain technology meets the goals and serves the community. A department should assign a lead to complete the report. Ideally, this would be the department's lead privacy contact, as mentioned earlier, but it could be the subject matter expert for the technology. That might make more sense depending on the circumstance. And the report lead can gather information from those who need to contribute to the report from the department. And after a review of the report by department leadership, the report should be submitted to the reviewer. So that could be privacy staff or a policy staff member for input. And then on the other side, for those reviewing these reports, the people who review the report should provide some sort of guidance document to departments needing to complete the report so they have kind of a general sense of what they are meant to report on. And the report should be reviewed by privacy experts for completeness, thoroughness, and consistency. Completeness, are the answers all fully answered? Thoroughness, are they answered to the degree that they should be? And consistency, does the report make sense internally? Sometimes if too many people are contributing, the answers can be really off. So it's always something to screen for. Notes on the report should be given back to the reporting department and they can create more complete answers, and descriptions of desired answer length and general parameters about content to be included would be helpful for the guide. Ideally, someone in a centralized privacy role should keep a tracking document to ensure reports are submitted on time and to communicate with departments about any deadlines. Okay, so now we're at the fifth section. I'm hoping to kind of wrap up a bunch of the lessons learned here and tell my general recommendations for privacy programs based on what we've discussed. Privacy programs should ideally go beyond legal compliance. I think legal compliance is a really important part of privacy work in government. However, proactively and optionally building in privacy practices into processes, programs, and technologies benefits departments. It helps build trust from the public with local government. Departments can be proactive and not need to do as much work when state and federal privacy laws inevitably are passed. And privacy by design and privacy enhancing technologies protect personal data and create more secure systems at every scale. And privacy by design is a lot of sort of what I've been referencing throughout this. It's, considering privacy at every point in the process of creating a government program around technology or considering acquiring a technology itself. Privacy enhancing technologies are technologies that maybe achieve the same goals as technologies that would collect PII or PHI, but they do it in a different way. So an example of this could be if you have a camera in a public park that would count how many people would pass by it. So you get a general sense of how many people are in the park in any one day. You could use a camera for that potentially, but you could also use LiDAR, which has basically uses lasers to get a sense of someone's shape or, versus a human's shape versus a dog's shape versus a bicycle's shape. And that could collect the same data, but do it in a way that protects personally identifiable information. So to consider these things, I think is really important and really does benefit governments and their relationship with the public and the public itself very much. Another best practice, privacy programs operate best with dedicated staff. This allows for relationships to be built over time and for someone or many people to be in communication with these departments to help them with both the compliance-based work that they have and anything that they want to build that enhances the services and technologies that they use. Consistency in communication with departments is really key to program success. And I think this goes well beyond just privacy and surveillance technology work, but if you are building anything new in any jurisdiction, you need to have people who can really have that consistency and communication with people so that they understand that like what this is about and that they get more buy-in into the work. Okay. Data privacy law may be new to many jurisdictions, but its applications and importance increase every year because of the prominence of new technologies and the nuanced issues that these technologies bring to the public sphere. Emerging technologies can have public benefits, but the risks must be managed even more carefully to ensure a net benefit to the public, since in many cases, these technologies have not been used in maybe certain applications as much prior to the use in, like dense urban areas or whatnot. And the bar for data security and privacy in government is high, and privacy programs help many government departments. As I mentioned before, privacy programs can help with legal departments and legal compliance, cybersecurity and information technology work, data work, and especially any open data work that might exist, and with other policy teams across different jurisdictions. So just a very brief summary of what we went over. Privacy as a foundation for government work creates many positive outcomes, but standardized understandings need to be reached for the success of programs. Communicating the jurisdiction's legal definition of surveillance technology is important to understanding and buy-in from departments. Procurement checks for surveillance technology should ideally be integrated into the procurement process. At the least, departments and procurement staff should have guidance documents to make determinations. Annual reports should have clear guidance, and there should be dialogue about responses between reporter and reviewer. And privacy programs serve a larger purpose within the structure of local government to protect, to look ahead, and to collaborate and support with other technology and compliance groups within that jurisdiction. And with that, my presentation is done. Thank you so much, and I'm available and open to any questions.
Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
And with your permission, we'd like to put your presentation on the PAB website.
You may.
That would be fantastic.
Good, because we already did.
Yeah, and it's already up there. That's right. So ask for forgiveness. I also want to, by the way, thank in the audience is Cesar Mares, who is from Oregon, was working up in Oregon with the city of Portland's privacy division. They also, although a much smaller city than San Diego, have professional staff, and he has been volunteering his time to help us in San Diego build the plane as we fly. So I do want to acknowledge him because it's incredibly helpful, and we appreciate your volunteerism as well as your volunteerism, Julia, for coming down here and giving us that presentation.
We do have one request for
Yeah,
public comment.
Yep, public comment?
So Andra?
So I appreciate the work that you guys do. I think this is a good forum of discussion. It doesn't happen a lot in boards, as I know. So I appreciate it, but it's a little bit like I listen to words a lot. And when we talk about privacy as the foundation for government work, I don't find that to be true because they're collecting data on people at an astronomical rate, and it is actually being used against people. And so privacy at the beginning of technology, I don't know that that's true either, especially when we're talking about, like, you're a biometrics expert. So when we're using biometrics, there can never be privacy because that's actually identifying somebody by their own, like, eyes or fingerprint or something like that. So it's interesting when the government talks about the benefits to the government and enhancing services. These are always like keywords that are used to make it seem like what's being implemented is actually going to benefit the people and it's going to be good for us. But in reality, this is a digital dragnet. It is a way for people to collect data on other people, especially if you're talking about, collecting data from people in a park, right? It's like it all kind of starts out benign. We just need to see so that we can see if maybe the park needs to be open later, things like that. But it leads to opening a door to saying, like, well, maybe we don't want people here at this time. So if we use this technology, and like when you look at the definition of surveillance, it's not just about, it's talking about basically, where am I at? Close observation, continuous close observation and gathering information. And so when that's what it's used for, it's like, we can't just say this is for your safety. It's really to collect data on the people and try to control their movement. So I think we need to be mindful in moving forward with using language and really what this means, because surveillance is surveillance. It's not anything but that.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, then board comment or questions.
And just very briefly, in your experiences up in San Francisco, both with the city and the county, as it relates to the annual reports, did the city and county come up with a standardized template and then distribute that out to all the different departments where there are kind of privacy concerns or a requirement to do the report? Or was it somewhat discretionary department by department in terms of look, feel, content within the report?
I'm happy to answer that question. So in San Francisco, the law requires that once a policy is passed by the Board of Supervisors, which is the Board of Elected Officials in the city and county, that a department then needs to complete annual reports. So the way that we've done it is created a form that asks specific questions based directly off of the ordinance requirements. And then the departments fill out that form, and then they submit it to the privacy professionals, and it's reviewed by them. They give any comments about, again, completeness, thoroughness, and consistency of the answers. They have a chance to maybe write a more descriptive, response. And then it's submitted directly to the Board of Supervisors.
Does this document, is this the guidance document or is this a separate document? And if it
This-
is, what's the name of it?
Oh, sorry. This is it's a form that the departments get directly. So it's not a document per se, but then their finalized document is called the annual surveillance report. And those are all publicly posted once the department submits it to the Board of Supervisors on a site that is managed by the city.
You mentioned, and I say this because you mentioned the guidance documents as, at the bare minimum, if you're going to have something that you can do, here's some, some crumbs to get you started before you can commit time. I think I remember you saying at some point it took, maybe this isn't the guidance document, but I think you said it took about 40 person hours to compile everything needed for this. Maybe it's not the guidance document, maybe it is, but would you consider at least there's other kinds of at least smaller scale tasks that can be done to kind of get movement in some standardization of processes without necessarily that initial commitment?
I mean, I would say, I actually think a guidance document is one of the better uses of time because if you don't have a lot of staff, I know it does take a while to put them together, but then you don't have to have those conversations over and over again with departments. I would say if you don't have some like centralized guidance document, then you do have to have those conversations sort of in person. And one thing I've found in my work is that like 80% of the questions that are asked are sort of asked by everyone. They're things that are very like, oh, well, what does this question mean? What do I need to, why are you telling me I need to put more information? I don't understand. Why is this not sufficient, right? Things like that. So even though it does take time, I would say in the absence of dedicated staff, I think it is worth the time to put something like that together. Although I recognize it's also hard to put something like that together without dedicated staff. So it's sort of a chicken or the egg situation. But ultimately, I would recommend that the departments filling this out have someone with expertise in either policymaking or privacy to talk to about this and like talk through these, any questions they might have.
So, and Caesar has actually put together just such a document that we will be forming a subcommittee to further work on and then present to the board, because that does seem like it's absolutely critical, particularly when we move beyond the police department and the fire department and move to the other departments within the city, because there's quite a few departments and a lot of technology.
Okay.
One thing I'm sorry, go ahead. Well, one thing I was a little surprised about with speaking with the San Diego Police Department folks is that they thought that everything they're creating is very unique to San Diego, and therefore it didn't seem like they really reached out to other departments to try to gather information about best practices for policies, procedures, preventive controls, risk detective, et cetera. How much did you actually use in San Francisco to identify best practices around the country? Because if you're using Flock, there's a lot of similar practices.
Do you mean what did privacy professionals in San Francisco or the San Francisco Police Department? I just want to understand what you.
In this case, it would be our San Diego Police Department looking out for what San Francisco is doing to meet your needs, right? And
I guess I can't speak to necessarily how any one police department would manage this, but I would say in my own work as a privacy professional, there are, privacy and government groups, and there are often professional groups for certain areas of government where people across jurisdictions can learn from each other, and that can be really useful to share learnings and things like that.
Does San Francisco use Flock?
The San Francisco Police Department does use Flock. That's
Okay,
correct.
and I mean, so because you're kind of overseeing some of that process as well, right?
Well, I'd prefer not to talk specifically about, specific departments in San Francisco, but I work with 52 departments in the city and county of San Francisco.
Okay.
So anything, you know, ALPR technologies, that's something that I have worked with more than one department on in San Francisco, for
Okay.
example.
I'm just trying to help the San Diego Police Department identify better preventive user-defined controls. Right now, it sounds like they're kind of shooting in the dark on as to what to use. And I would think that if they contacted other departments that already had done this, they could get some really good ideas.
I mean, we can all learn from each other.
Yeah, okay, anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think supporting what Lee is trying to drive at, this will have been a great presentation for the San Diego Police Department as well. I think it provides a lot of guidance and information on how they can go about their processes. So maybe suggestion to the chair that we recommend this presentation for maybe the department in charge of presenting to us, just so that it becomes an informational session for them.
I think that's a great idea, and whether they like it or not, they're going to be getting these lessons that we've learned through us when we talk to them. Absolutely.
I'm just kind of thinking, basically after everything you said, we should just have the same exact session for city council and staff during, I'm not sure how we can get this on the agenda or if it's even feasible right now, but just something similar, even if it's just titled, right, how to start a privacy division if you wanted to, right? Just that kind of, because we're kind of thinking, okay, this is really good ideas for your privacy staff to do, but I think it's important at least to see, okay, how can you visualize unless you have this plan? I think this is something that I think staff would need to see to really feel that like we're so close, so we just need to get over that initial hump, then we can get these things started.
And if I could add briefly to that, in a lot of jurisdictions, oftentimes the privacy work is combined with the artificial intelligence policy work, with emerging technology work. So these are needs that every jurisdiction has, that they're, you know, these are problems that we're all facing or issues that we're all facing that sometimes have problems that need to be solved. So I think it's great to have those discussions, you know, more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, I've just had very, very brief discussions with the city department, like IT, but like, what is the city's plan for AI? What would even be, like, that's just a great question for a city resident to know.
I think these issues really intersect with each other, and so it's helpful to talk about them together. And that's part of why I included some information on emerging technologies in my presentation.
I'm going to recommend to the mayor that Coda has some free time very early Sunday morning, that he gets assigned all of this.
I mean, at the very least, I was going to suggest, is there a way we can just like vote on, write a resolution proposing this condensed, even just the slides and this discussion, at least be presented and have that, like, this is something as close as we can get to wrapping up something to give to city to say, hey, this is what we need right now.
And our timing is terrible because, like many municipalities, the budget is terrible, but we need to, all of us need to keep talking to the city council members, the mayor's office about this issue, so it's not forgotten, because it is sorely needed in San Diego.
Thank you for having me. This has been, I've really enjoyed the opportunity to speak with all of you.
Sorry, Stickler, I just was reminded of initial comment. I think the earlier point, non-agenda public comment was, okay, are you putting the cart before the horse, trying to get all these things established when some of our functional operational things are, how much of what you worked on in San Francisco, so there's like probably the board equivalent, the PAB equivalent in San Francisco, right? About
I would say yes, there is, there's a privacy board. It's a subcommittee of a.
But you don't work closely with them, so how close is for example, their ability to get resources or support compared to like your part of the overarching city hierarchical structure?
Well, it's a little, the composition's a little different. It's, the privacy board in San Francisco is mostly city employees, and there's one public member. So one member of the public, whereas you are all members of the public. So I would say the people who are on the board are people with privacy expertise in their various fields. There's people who work in cybersecurity, IT, procurement, in the controller's office. And if they seek to advocate for resources, they could, but they're in a sort of different position, I think, than this board, the members of this board, I should say. But I can't speak for them.
I could certainly envision a system where you have a professional staff and then still have a volunteer board, oversight board, or an independent oversight board. I mean, I think that would be a good situation.
It's interesting to see how their different boards and divisions laid out, just one volunteer member from the public, but the rest of them are all city staff members. That's very interesting.
I have to say, since I've started working in government, I've found it fascinating how different governments approach the same issue with different solutions. And I always am weighing the benefits and the disadvantages, but they all, find a way, one way or another. So that's a whole nother discussion to have.
Or when you find this perfect system, let us know.
Not a discussion I'm having. Thank you again.
Any other comments? All right, then I want to thank you very much. And do we have yes?
Thank you.
And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? So adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.